All right, Matt, our main event for UFC São Paulo coming at you this Saturday. Listen, you've got the return of one of Brazil's best in Jacare Souza, moving up a weight class, up to light heavyweight, taking on a potential title challenger. I mean, he's been in the mix in Jan Błachowicz, former KSW champ. Matt, this fight is deserving of the 5-minute timer because we've got a lot to talk about here. And listen, Jacare, for me in my mind's eye, was always a perennial contender in the middleweight division right up until he fought Robert Whittaker. And since that fight, things haven't really gone his way. I mean, he had a great finish win over Derek Brunson. Then it was a loss to Kelvin Gastelum. Then he looked great against Chris Weidman. And then he lost again, forcing him to move up to light heavyweight. So the track record isn't good, but you know what you're going to get from a guy who has had great success in the UFC, had great success in Strikeforce before that. And Jan Błachowicz is a guy that, in my head, I always said, he's not really that great. I mean, to come into the UFC, he went 2-4, but since then he's 5-1. So you can't really look at that whole body of work. You have to look at what you've had recently from a guy like Blachowicz. And in that 5-1 run, the one loss was to Thiago Santos, which, I mean, he went on to challenge for a title. So,
he beat John Jones after that, so, that's kind of crazy.
But still, this is a really, really good fight. It might fly under the radar. I know it's a main event, whatnot. And if you look at the odds, and normally we do that closer to the end of the video, but Jan Błachowicz is a -200, -210 favorite. Are you surprised that odds makers, everybody out there, really kind of finally giving him his due?
I don't. And like you said, finally giving him his due. I feel like after his 5-1 run that he's been on, you finally have to give Jan Błachowicz some respect. And he never, I know the Thiago Santos fight was a main event, but it was one of those ESPN Plus cards. It was on at a weird time.
This is an ESPN Plus card.
No, but it was the main event of an ESPN Plus card that was in Europe, so it was on at a weird time. So he didn't really get the viewership, and he didn't really gain the popularity from that as you thought he would. Even in a loss, he did have a pretty good performance. And in the Luke Rockhold fight in his last one, that was like one of the most vicious knockouts you can possibly see. He basically landed a nuclear bomb on Luke Rockhold and put him out. And it's kind of the same story with Jacare Souza. You have a guy who had a lot of success in middleweight moving up to light heavyweight. And a lot of people think, the move up in weight is kind of starting to happen more and more in MMA. You see guys move up in weight and they do really well. Like you mentioned, Robert Whittaker, he was kind of not even a journeyman, kind of, win one, lose one at welterweight, and then became middleweight champion. So I just don't think it's the answer. Because if you look at the way Luke Rockhold fought Jan Błachowicz, he kind of fought him the way Jacare fights most fights. He threw big power shots, stood on the outside, threw a lot of kicks, and went for the takedown. If that reminds you of anyone, that's exactly how Jacare Souza fights.
And it's weird because you look at Jacare's last fight before he moved up, and it was just an odd one for him. I mean, he was really tentative. He just couldn't really get it going. And in the fights where he finds a lot of success, it's the power shots, it's the setup with the leg kicks, like you said, and it's heavy takedowns. And you could really look back and argue the fight against Kelvin Gastelum. I scored it for Jacare. I know it was somewhat
when I first saw it, but I did think Kelvin won. Anyways,
it was somewhat controversial, but still, it was a half decent performance.
It's an amazing fight.
And out of that, Kelvin Gastelum really, his stock rose tremendously, especially due to the fact that it was a fight in Brazil as well.
He got the title shot off that win over Jacare, and it was a split decision loss against a future title challenger. So there's really no shame in that. But like you said, breaking up the Hermanson fight, Jacare looked tentative, and that's the thing. In a 3-round fight, I don't know if I'd pick anyone over Jacare. But in a 5-round fight, that always worries me. If he doesn't get that finish, rounds 3, 4, and 5, he's a big guy, he throws a lot of power shots, and he doesn't always land them. And if you're just throwing big power and not landing any of it, you're going to get tired by the end of a fight. And Jan Błachowicz is a very efficient style. We were talking about it before, kind of joking. Jan Błachowicz looks stiff as all hell. He looks
kind of like a blown up Dennis Seaver.
That's a good way of saying it. Like, the way he moves is very robotic and kind of weird, but it's extremely effective. And he likes to finish his combinations with kicks, and we've seen Jacare get caught by kicks.
The one thing that I want to focus on as well, because we still have a little bit of time here, but it's starting to run short. Jacare Souza, so he's moving up in weight, and you think maybe he'd have an advantage. A guy like Luke Rockhold, a bigger guy at middleweight, moves up, still has somewhat of an advantage. Jacare is going to be at a height discrepancy, a reach discrepancy, and a leg reach discrepancy, which is important, especially with the kicks that Blachowicz is able to employ, and the fact that he's going to have 6 inches of reach. And yeah, you have to equate that to roughly 3 per arm, but still, that's fairly significant, especially in a fight like this where both guys are fairly similar in their styles. So it's a good fight.
That's the thing. Looking at Jan Błachowicz too, his last 3 fights have been against middleweights. He fought Thiago Santos, Luke Rockhold, and now Jacare. And if we look at the success that he had, Jacare doesn't fight at all like Thiago Santos. Thiago Santos is way bigger, even though they fought at the same weight class. But Thiago Santos throws like crazy things you're never going to expect. Jacare just throws heavy shots and eventually kind of hopes that one lands, and that's how he gets the fight to the floor. That's how he submits you. So I don't think that his wrestling is good enough to get Blachowicz to the ground. I don't think his striking is good enough to drop him to the ground. And for that reason, I feel like Jan should be able to keep the fight on the feet, piece him apart for a lot of it, and maybe get the finish later on.
If it does go to the feet, and listen, Jan Błachowicz is a really good grappler in his own right.
If it does go to the ground, Jacare will choke him unconscious in half a second.
Yeah, I mean, Jan Błachowicz is a good, defensive type of grappler. You look at the win that he had, too, over Nikita Krylov, and hey, that was Krylov's return to the UFC, and it was a good win for him there. He was able to submit a submission guy, and listen, yes, Nikita Krylov gets submitted, but still, the fact of the matter is, I agree with you here. I'm going to take Jan Błachowicz. We ran over the 5 minutes.
This is going to be fight of the night, though, without a doubt.
It's a really fun one, and we're really looking forward to this card for UFC São Paulo. You're not going to want to miss our episode this week as well. If you made it this far into the video of This Week in MMA, we're going to have a full-length episode there here on YouTube, so don't miss that. Be sure to check out our 2-minute predictions as well. For Fight Night picks, let's get into it.